good morning class. As you know, in our previous class, we have discussed some important questions of the chapter polynomial. This chapter is the second chapter of your NCERT class 10th math. Okay, so already we have discussed 11 MCQs and in this class, we are going to discuss the next few important MCQs of this chapter. Okay, so let's start today's class. So already we have discussed up to 11 number question. Now the question is question number 12. The question number 12 is given that what is the value of the polynomial x to the power 8 minus x to the power 5 plus x square minus x plus 1. Now this is a critical question where you need to understand, where you need to analyze the question. Now in this question, the value of x can be positive, can be 0 or can be negative. Value of x can be positive, 0 or negative. If we put the value of x as positive 1, so you can see that x to the power 8 will be a positive quantity, x to the power 5 will be a positive quantity, x square is also a positive quantity and minus x is also a positive quantity. But x to the power 8 will be bigger than x to the power 5. As one number is multiplied with itself 8 times and here the number is multiplied with itself 5 times. So obviously 8 times will be a bigger number. Hence x to the power 8 minus x to the power 5 will give you a positive number. Similarly, x square is the bigger number as compared to x. So if we subtract these two numbers, then also we will get a positive number. And here 1 is also a positive number. So all the numbers are positive numbers. Now if we add all the positive numbers, then also we will get a positive number. So if we take x as a positive number, then we will get the value of the polynomial as a positive number. Again, if we put x is equal to 0 over here, then x to the power 8 will be 0, x to the power 5 will be 0, x square will be 0, x is also 0. Now we will have 1. Now 1 is also a positive number. So if we put x is equal to 0, then also we will get a positive value. Okay. Now in this question, if we put x is equal to negative value, then x to the power 8, the power or the degree is an even number, hence this will give you positive value. And x to the power 5, this is an odd number, hence this will give you negative number. But there is already a negative sign before it, then this negative will give you ultimately positive value. For x square, as the degree is an even number, then it will give you a positive value. And this x will be a negative number and before it there is also a negative number. The negative and negative will give you positive value. And this positive one is also a positive one. That means here the value of the polynomial will be a positive one. So we have taken 3 different cases where x can be positive or x may be 0 or x may be negative. So for positive value of x, the value of the polynomial becomes positive. For 0, the value of the polynomial is positive. And for negative also, the value of the polynomial is positive. So in this question, the value of the polynomial is positive for all the real numbers. I hope this question is clear to you. Now let's move to the question number 13. Now in this question, it is being asked, what is the lowest value of x square plus 4x plus 2? Now in this question, let's try to understand how can we find out the lowest value of a quadratic polynomial. So to understand this question, let's try to understand a concept. Here it is saying that if we have a quadratic polynomial ax square plus bx plus c, okay, we have a quadratic polynomial x square plus bx plus c. Now if a is positive, that means that the graph will be like this. Now here we will get a minimum value of this polynomial. Now for a is positive, we will get the graph upward direction. The graph will be upward direction. Now for this upward movement, we will get a minimum value. Okay. Now if you draw the graph, you will get the minimum value. But for one mark question for MCQ, it's useless to draw the entire graph and after that find the minimum value. So there is a formula for this question. So to get the minimum value of a quadratic polynomial, you have to use the formula c minus b square by 4a. Okay. So this is the formula to get the minimum value of a quadratic polynomial where a is positive. Now if in this quadratic polynomial a is negative, if a is negative, then the graph will be like this. It will be downward graph. So here the same value will give you the maximum value of the polynomial, because these are the minimum value. These are below this number. That means this will give you the maximum number, a maximum value. So in this case, the maximum value of the polynomial can be obtained. And the maximum value of the polynomial is the same formula, that is c is equal to b square minus 4a, because this is the same value. But for different polynomial, for this polynomial, for upward polynomial, this will act as the minimum value. And for downward polynomial, this will act as the maximum value. The formula is same, but we need to check whether a is positive or a is negative. If a is positive, then we will get an upward graph, and here we will get the minimum value. For a is negative, we will get a downward graph, here we will get the maximum value. So for this question, look at this question, here a is your 1, b is your 4 and c is your 2. Now clearly a is your positive. So for the positive value, you will get the lowest value. The lowest value is equal to c minus b square by 4a. Now c is your 2 minus b square is your 4 square, that is 16, divided by 4 into a. A is your 1. Now 4 and 16 will get cancelled. This will give you 4. Now 2 minus 4 and the answer is minus 2. So I hope this concept is clear to you. Now look at the question number 14. Here it is asking us if the sum of the zeros of the polynomial, this is 6, then what is the value of k? Normally, if you see this question, this is a cubic polynomial. This is a cubic polynomial, which is normally not in your syllabus in this year. This was your syllabus before 2 years ago. But now this is not in your syllabus. Still then, let's try to solve this question. In this kind of question, if you want to find the sum, as it is given that this is a cubic polynomial, so there will exist 3 zeros. Now one zero is alpha, another zero is beta, and third zero is your gamma. Now the formula is saying this is your minus b by a. But here the b is different, because now the cubic polynomial will be of this form: ax cube plus bx square plus cx plus d. Now a is the coefficient of x cube, whereas b is the coefficient of x square. So if you look at this thing, so the coefficient of x square, that is b, is your minus 3k. Now in place of this minus, let's put minus, and in place of b, let's put minus 3k, and divided by the value of a is clearly given here, that is 2. Now if you see that alpha plus beta plus gamma, and that gives you minus minus will get cancelled, that will give you 3k by 2. Now according to question, the sum of the zeros is 6. So in place of this sum of the zeros, I can write 6. Now this is equal to 3k by 2. Now if you simplify this equation, this 2 is divided here. So if we move it to the left hand side, this will be multiplied, and this will give you 3k. Now if we move this 3 to the right hand to the left hand side, this will give you 6 into 2 divided by 3. Now 3 will give you 2, and 2 times 2 is your 4. So the answer of k is 4. Look at the question number 15. If the square of difference of zeros of the quadratic polynomial this is equal to this. Now what is given here? First thing is a square of what? Of the difference of the zeros. That means if we have a quadratic polynomial that have two zeros. One is alpha, another one is beta. Now the difference, that means alpha minus beta. And again you need to do the square. That means alpha minus beta whole square. And that is given to you as 144. So alpha minus beta whole square, and that is given to you 144. Okay. Now what is it? Now what it is asking to us? Now the value of p. Okay. So we know that what is the value of alpha plus beta? This is your minus b by a, and the value of alpha and beta is known as c by a. But we don't know what is the value of alpha minus beta. Now there is an identity which collectively relates these three terms. So what is that identity? Sir, alpha minus beta whole square plus 4 alpha beta, and that gives you alpha plus beta whole square. Okay. Now in place of all these terms, put the value that is given to you. Now alpha minus beta whole square is your 144. So in place of alpha minus beta whole square, I put it 144 plus 4 into alpha beta is your c by a. So c is your 45 and a is your 1. So this will give you 4 into 45. Now alpha plus beta will be your minus b by a. So b is your p. So minus p, and by a means 1. So don't write it. So skip that, and that will be your minus p square. Now this is 144, and 45 into 4, that will give you 180, and this is minus p square give you p square. Now if you add these two things, then you will get 324, the value of p square. Now what is the value of p? That's the square root of 324, and square root of 324 will give you positive or negative of 18. So the value of p is plus or minus 18. So I hope this is clear. Now the question number 16 is there. If one of the zeros of the quadratic polynomial this is minus 3. Again, this type of question has already been discussed with you in the previous video. So what you have to do? So what you have to do is here, whatever zero is given to you, just put it in place of the variable. So this will becomes k minus 1. In place of x square, write down minus 3 whole square plus k into, in place of x, put minus 3 plus 1. And as it is given that this is the zero of the polynomial, hence the value of the polynomial becomes 0. Now this is k minus 1, and minus 3 square will give you 9. Minus 3 into k will give you 3k plus 1, and that is 0. Now this, if we open the brackets, then that will give you 9k minus 9 minus 3k plus 1, and that gives you 0. Now taking the similar terms here, 9k minus 3k will give you 6k, minus 9 plus 1 gives you minus 8, and that is 0. So 6k is equal to, if we move this minus 8 to the right hand side, that gives you plus 8, and k is equal to 8 by 6, which ultimately gives you 4 by 3. So I hope this question is clear to you. Now the question number 17. In this question, it is being asked us, what is the quadratic polynomial whose zeros are minus 3 and 4? That means this is the value of alpha and this is the value of beta. So in our previous class, we discussed that the polynomials become x square minus alpha plus beta x plus alpha into beta. So in place of x square, write down x square minus alpha. In place of alpha, we can write minus 3. In place of beta, we can write 4, and this will gives you x, and alpha minus 3 and beta will give you 4. Okay. Now x square. Let's try to solve this bracket first. 4 minus 3 will give you 1 and x, and 4 into 3 will give you 12. But as there is a sign of negative, so we will write this. Now the equation will be x square minus x minus 12. But interestingly, if you look at the options, then there is no options like this. Then there is no such kind of options available here. Now don't get confused and put this as the correct answer. This is not the correct answer because you need to have a negative sign before 12. But there is a positive sign before 12. This will not be the right answer. This will not be the right answer. So what will be the right answer? Now we need to check one answer or one option where both the signs are negative. Now look at this option. In this option, both the answers are, both the signs are negative. Now let's check whether this polynomial and this polynomial are same or not. So what happened in this polynomial? Just divide this entire polynomial by 2. Now initially our polynomial was like this. Now if I divide this entire polynomial by 2, then what will I get? Now I will get x square by 2 minus x by 2 and 12 by 2 will give you 6. Now look at this. This and this polynomial are same. So don't get confused by the signs. Always look at the question. Always look at the answers. What you get here? Here you get both negative signs. So always choose that option which carry both the negative signs. If there are two or multiple options are available there where the signs are exactly same, then you have to check whether the value of the polynomial is same or not. So you have to check with which number will multiply the question. So with which number we will multiply the answer so that we can get the option. So here if we divide the answer by 2, we can get this option and hence this option is the right answer. Okay. Now question number 18. If the zeros of the quadratic polynomial these are 2 and minus 3. So already 2 zeros are given to you. So this is alpha and this is beta. Okay. So we know that if we have the zeros, then the equation or the polynomial will be like this. Okay. So let's put the value of the zeros. So this will give you 2 minus 3 and x. Okay. Plus in place of alpha 2 and in place of beta 3. Now x square minus 2 minus 3 will give you minus 1x and this will give you 6. Now if you simplify this one, this will give you x square plus x minus 6. But in the question it is given that this is the polynomial. So if you look at the polynomial, this is given as x square plus a plus 1x plus b. Now compare these two polynomials, you will get the value of a and b. Here as you can see, x square is there and x square is here. So both are equal. But in case of this, the coefficient of x is 1. Or you may say that b is your 1. Similarly, in case of this, the coefficient of x is a plus 1. Okay. Now here, the constant term is minus 6. And here the constant term is b. So clearly you can see that the value of b is minus 6 and the value of a will be your 1 minus 1 and that is your 0. So the value of a is 0 and the value of b is minus 6. As there is one option is missing, I can see that a, b, c, 3 options are there and d option is missing. So the d option is the right answer in which a is equal to 0 and b is equal to minus 6. So this will be the right answer. Okay. Now look at the question number 19. The question number 19 is given that the zeros of the quadratic polynomial these are dash. Okay. Again, this is a very important question where you need to analyze the question. Okay. Now we know that x square minus sum of zeros into x plus product of zeros. This is the polynomial. Yes or no? Okay. Now if we compare the polynomial, you can clearly see that minus alpha plus beta, that means the coefficient of x is given as 99. Okay. That means alpha plus beta is your minus 99. Okay. Again, alpha into beta is given as 127. So you can see that alpha and beta are two numbers, okay, multiplying which you will get a positive number. So if you multiply two numbers and you get a positive number, that means both alpha and beta are positives or both alpha and beta are negative. If both alpha is negative and beta is negative, then after multiplying alpha and beta, you will get negative into negative, and that is the positive. Yeah, you may say like this, alpha is positive, beta is positive, and product of two positive quantity is positive. So here you can see that alpha into beta is 127. That means this is a positive quantity. Hence, both alpha and beta may be positive or both alpha and beta may be negative. Okay. Now let's try which one of them is correct. If both alpha and beta are positive, then the sum should be positive one. If alpha is positive and beta is positive, then the sum should be a positive one. But look at this. Alpha plus beta is negative, minus 99. That means this option can't be the right one. Hence, we have left with the last option, that is both alpha and beta are negative. Now let's check if alpha is negative and beta is also negative, and if we want to add these two things, then also we will get a negative number. So here you can see that this is a negative number. That means what we can say from this question is that if we have all the quantities A, B, C, all are positive. If all are positive, that means that alpha and beta both are negative. Is it clear to you, beta? If alpha and beta are negative, that means here A, B, C all will be positive. Now let's take the opposite or the alternate situation where x square, suppose minus 99x is there and plus 127 is there. So what will happen here, sir? Now here alpha plus beta will be your positive 99 because minus b is there. So this will give you positive 99 and alpha into beta is 127. That means what happened here, sir? Now product of two number is positive one and sum of the two number is also positive. That means both alpha and beta are positive. Okay, let's try to summarize this thing like this. Alpha. So if A, B and C all are positive, what will happen, sir? Now alpha and beta are negative. Both alpha and beta are negative. But if A, comma C are positive and B, that means the middle term is negative. That means this term is negative. Then what will happen, sir? Here both alpha and beta are positive. Why, sir? Because alpha and beta, if both are positive, sir, this is common. If alpha and beta both are positive, then the product will be positive and then their sum will also be positive. Now, except these two concepts, if we accept these two scenarios, if we have left with other situation, then remember one is positive, that may be alpha, that may be beta, either any of them. One is positive and one is your negative. For example, like this, x square minus 99x and minus 127. Here both beta, here both B and C, both are negative. That means that means one of them is positive or one of them is negative. So in this kind of question, you just remember this table. If A, B, C, that means all are positive. That means both the zeros are negative. If first one is positive, second one is negative, and third one is positive, here both the zeros will be positive one. So you have to remember two cases. If all are positive, that means the zeros are negative. If one is positive, second one is negative, third one is positive. That means all are positive, means all the zeros are positive, and except these two scenario, whatever scenario you may have, in that case, one is positive, one is negative. Hope this question is clear to you. Now let's move to the question number 20. The zeros of the quadratic polynomial this. Now again, look at this question. So here, all the quantities are positive. A is positive, B is positive, C is positive. That means here both alpha and beta are negative. So now look at the options. Cannot both be positive, cannot both be negative, are always equal, are always unequal, are always equal. So till now we don't know what is the concept of equal or unequal. So let's leave these two things. Actually both the answers will be negative, but the options are a little bit different. Here the options are cannot. So if the both the answers are negative, that means cannot both be positive. So here this will be the answer. If cannot is there, if this thing is not here, suppose like this is there, so you have to choose this answer, both be negative. But as the option is given that cannot, that means we have to choose the opposite one. So here the opposite of negative will be positive one, hence 20 is the answer. Now let's move to question number 21. In this question, if the zeros of a quadratic polynomial are equal, okay. Now this is again an interesting question. Here the zeros of the quadratic polynomial are equal. Okay. So if both are equal, that means if alpha is positive, then beta is also positive. Yes or no? Yes, if alpha is negative, beta is also negative. Okay. Then what will happen, sir? Now, if alpha is positive and beta is positive, then alpha plus beta is also positive one. And alpha into beta is also positive one. Okay. Now, if alpha is negative and beta is negative, then what will happen? Sir, alpha plus beta is a negative quantity and alpha into beta is a positive quantity. Okay. So, there are two scenarios. First one is this and second one is this one. So, what will happen, sir? If this happens, that means what will be the polynomial, sir? Now, if this is the scenario where both alpha plus beta is positive and alpha into beta is also positive, then what will happen, sir? Now, x square minus alpha beta x plus alpha into beta. So, here alpha plus beta is positive, but before this there is a sign of negative. That means this entire term will be a negative term. So, x square minus bx and plus c, because this is the positive. For this scenario, what will happen, sir? X square plus bx plus c. As there is a sign of negative here and alpha plus beta is also negative, so negative and negative will give you positive. So the value of this will be x square plus bx plus c. Now look at both the polynomial. In this polynomial, the sign of a is positive and the sign of c is also positive. Okay, sir. In this polynomial also the sign of a is positive and sign of c is also positive. So in both the cases, both sign of c and a are same signs. But here it is given that opposite sign. This is not the answer. Here, option number C. C and A have the same sign. So I hope this question is clear to you. The polynomial where both the zeros are equal, in this kind of question, the sign of A and the sign of C are always equal or having the same sign. Okay. Now, question number 22 is that if one of the zeros of a quadratic polynomial of the form this is the negative of the other. So here what is given to us? If there are two zeros, one is alpha and another is beta. So what is given that one of the zeros is the negative of the other. That means if this is alpha, this will be your negative of alpha, minus alpha, because the second one is the negative of the first one. So this is alpha and this is your negative of alpha. Now we know that the polynomial will be x square minus alpha plus beta x plus alpha into beta. Now if alpha and beta are same in magnitude but different in sign, if we are having different signs, then what will happen, sir? In place of alpha, let's write alpha, and in place of beta, put it minus alpha. Okay, na? Now this is x, and in place of alpha, put it alpha, in place of beta, put it minus alpha. Now what will happen, sir? This is x square and minus alpha minus alpha. That will give you 0x. And this is your minus alpha square. Now 0 into anything, that will give you 0, and this polynomial becomes x square minus alpha square. That means you will have x square term. That means if we generalize this thing, this will be ax square, and in place of b the thing is 0, and in place of c you will have some kind of like this. So in this kind of polynomial, what we have learned, if both the zeros are equal but negative of each other, in this kind of case the b or the coefficient of x will be 0. That means this is bx, that means the degree of this is 1, and this is the linear term. Linear means having degree 1. So in this case the degree 1 is x, and the coefficient of this x is 0. That means this has no linear term. In this case we do not have any kind of linear term. This is the quadratic term and this is the constant term. The linear term is 0. Okay. So again you may have see that there are so many options where it is given that has no linear term. Okay. So in these two options have a linear term. So we don't have a linear term. So option C and D can be eliminated. Now we have two options left. One, it is saying that no linear term, and second one also having the no linear term. So now let's move to the second part of the option. And the constant term is negative and the constant term is positive. Now look at here. What is the constant term, sir? The constant term is negative, sir. So this option also got eliminated, and you have left with the first option. Here the b term, या फिर the linear term is 0 and the constant term is negative 1. Okay, I hope this is clear. So here the question number 23 is asking us, which of the following is not the graph of a quadratic polynomial? So we know that quadratic polynomial will give you a graph like this, and the name of this graph is parabola. Now this parabola may be upward direction or the parabola may be downward direction, but this will give you a parabola. In a quadratic polynomial, the graph is a parabola. But if you look at here, this is the shape of a parabola, this is the shape of a parabola, this is also shape of a parabola. But here you can see that this graph cuts the x-axis at 3 different points. That means this graph will have 3 zeros. Hence, this is a graph of a cubic polynomial. Hence, this cannot be the graph of a quadratic polynomial. So, it is asking us which one of the following is not a quadratic polynomial. Hence, option number D is not a quadratic polynomial because it is a cubic polynomial. Again, if we look at these 3 options A, B and C, all of them will give you a quadratic polynomial. But what is the difference between these two things, sir? Now here in this graph, you will get two different or two unequal zeros. Here this 0 is different, this 0 is different. In this case, what will happen, sir? Here we will get same or equal zeros. If one 0 is 2, then other 0 will be also 2. If one 0 is 5, other 0 is also 5. Here we will get two zeros, but they are equal. But in this case, if you look at the graph carefully, you can see that this graph does not cut or does not make your x-axis. That means this graph has zeros which are not real. So here the zeros are not real. Hence we cannot plot them on x-axis. So the zeros will exist, but they are not real zeros. Okay. So we will discuss about this in our later classes, that means in class 11 and class 12. You will see that if a number is not real number, that means this is an imaginary number, and the concept will be discussed in class 11. But for now, you may just think like this. This is the graph where there are 3 zeros, hence it's a cubic polynomial, hence it cannot be a quadratic polynomial. So like this, we have 23 MCQs, and I hope these 23 MCQs were clear to you. Okay. So with this, I would like to conclude today's class. So thank you class for being attentive.